Let's talk about swords. Now, I'm gonna give you a rundown of my favorite swords, and I'm not including daggers or knives. Alright? Or throwing swords if those exist. So yeah, here's my favorites. The long sword, of course, big crossguard version. Or else it's just a pike without a shaft. Shaft. The shamshir, a type of scimitar, which you saw. I don't know who used, but regardless, shamshir. The claymore, that's a pretty recent addition. I quite like the claymore. And lastly, and like, it's not. I don't really consider it my favorite, but if I had to have a katana, like absolutely had to, I would take one with a big ass handle. That's one thing about a katana. We all know the thing that it's way overblown in media as the sharpest thing ever. Even though it came from a metal, an ore pour, mineral pour, an iron pour region, which is why they have to fold it a trillion times. And the thing about big handles, that big ass hilt, is that if you set up your sword to block a blow, from your opponent's sword, they could aim for your handle instead and just knock that thing out of your hands. Because it's a big 2-inch cylindrical piece of wood. 2-inch thick cylindrical piece of wood held between two weak, trembly, meaty foundations. And let's be real, it's not gonna get cut in half. Yeah, try to chop 2-inch thick wood with a slick blade. In any case, I would probably crack the blade, and considering the quality of metal of katanas, you might not want to block either, because that'll just shatter your blade. You ever seen the movie remake of Samurai X, Rurouni Kenshin? You remember how shit the sound effects were for the swords clashing? They just kept using the glass breaking sound over and over again. I guess it makes sense. They were fighting with glass. But anyways, now, one thing that always annoys me is I always get confused between the long sword and the claymore. I know, ironic considering that I just called those two of my favorites. Alright? It's a lot like the cello and the double bass, except for less dramatic. Because it's an upright bass, you can tell it's an upright bass based on... Well, you literally need scale. It needs to be positioned next to someone of an average height. And that's how you know, oh, that's an upright bass. The claymore, I guess the same thing still occurs, although there's still long swords that are super duper long. Now, I'm guessing it's just the hilt. That's supposed to be the dead giveaway, but not really. They're both two-handed. And you know what? Then you got swords like rapiers. Now, I already hate saying rapier because of the obvious root word in it, even though it's not really a root word. But I still have to keep saying it over and over. Right? And these swords are like toothpicks. They're little needles, literally. And they're heavy. They're way too heavy for their own good. And they have the most flowery, flamboyant designs on them, on the hilt. really looks good to me. Although sometimes they have like a bird cage design where it's like you could get your hand stabbed anyway, so there's no point to that. Point, get it? And then when to accurately fight with rapiers, you have to take them. You have to assume the most feminine pose of all time. I mean, the only other feminine pose more feminine than that is that knee knock pose, where you put your knees together. You know, you might as well. Your kneecaps together. I mean, so no, not a fan of rapiers. And it's always funny you see in media that they're associated with women, even though they're like bumblingly heavy. A woman wouldn't be able to wield that effectively because of obvious biological muscles differences. Same thing with the bow. Human women just don't have that kind of arm strength to be using a bow all day. You can't really be fast with a bow. I mean, Legolas must lift all the time, but he's so thin and wiry, it doesn't make any sense. He's gotta practice using his right arm on something, if you know what I mean. I don't know, he's an elf. They probably never do any of that. How do elves breed? I just assume they don't. And you never see any elf children in Elfwood? Rivendell? Anyways, I'm going off topic. We're talking about swords here. What are the swords? We got that weird whip sword that literally looks like a fruit roll-up made into a blade. Thing is, so stupidly impractical. There's no point to it. I mean, yeah, it makes some distance between you and something else, but you could just get felled by an arrow anyways. A claymore is much better suited for that. It looks difficult as hell to blacksmith. And then what else? You might end up turning yourself into ribbons with your own weapon. It's a lot like the medieval flail. The flail is a completely mythological weapon. It was never used in the medieval times. And for the simple fact that it's extremely impractical. It would clobber you in the face. Whether you make contact with someone or whether you miss completely. Because, you have to account for a recoil. Now, flails did exist, but they were just one chain baseball bats. What other weapon? You got the gladius. I kind of like the gladius, but it's just too small. I'd rather take a spear into battle. Much longer, much more distance. How come we don't use bronze for swords anymore? Is that too expensive now? Were those effective? What other sword can I bash on? Those Chinese straight swords look cool, but there's no guard there at all. You're just gonna get your hand chopped off. You're gonna look like Anakin. You underestimate my power. And then whatever. You think if Anakin tried to fight with a robot hand, he would probably crush his manhood? He probably would. Then what else? What other sword can we rail on about? Oh man, Engage. Okay, I know it's fictional and all that, but you look in like Smash Ultimate or Fire Emblem, whatever. I don't play fucking Fire Emblem. You look at Corrin, female or male, whatever. We're gonna be looking at female, of course. Look at her sword. It's a literal chainsaw sword. Sort of. Sort of. Try to swing with that thing, it won't do anything. I mean, you know that argument. Try to rip clothing with a saw, it won't happen. Or what other sword? I've seen what's up with China making all those snaky coily blades. Is there any point? I think it's just for good looks, but good looks is subjective. Because I think I would laugh my ass off if I saw that in battle. Then I'd probably get stabbed. Well, it's been a learning experience for sword making. I'll see you on the flip side. Until I think of another stupid commentary video to make.